Hello, friends, and welcome to another installment of Go Tell It on the Mountain. Today, I get a chance to spend some time with Reverend Doug Bixby on this Ash Wednesday. Good morning to you, Doug.
Good morning.
We are going to have an opportunity to talk about my visit to First Church Longmeadow, where Doug has been there for about 9-ish months. We might as well just say, almost a year. That just sounds better. So, Doug, I'm sure you've seen Go Tell It on the Mountain before, so you know I'm going to start off with a question of, tell me about your call to First Church Longmeadow, and you might throw in there a little bit of your journey to the United Church of Christ in there as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about my call, and I always, at least at first when I was discerning my call, I really felt called to faith at first, and then into ministry. And I think after I've been pastoring churches for 30 years, 2 churches, 15 years each, and I still love it. And recently, as I was discerning the end of my previous ministry, I was thinking about ministry in general, and I love preaching, I love leading, I love weekly worship planning and all that goes into it. And so that's my call to ministry in general. The second tier is what you just referred to, and that's my call into the UCC. I've always had a foot in the UCC. I've served, the 2 churches I served previously were in the Covenant Church, and basically, as I was discerning my third call here, I realized that the current environment in the Covenant was very divided over the human sexuality question, and the difficulty I had with that and where we were heading in general led me to realize that the UCC was a better fit for me at this time. I had also been working as a church consultant for 25 of those 30 years. My first book was written 5 years into ministry, and I started when I was 26. So that book was published by the Pilgrim Press, and I think largely it was that and the fact that the first few churches I consulted were UCC. And then doing things like Super Saturday for the past 10 or so years led to a lot of connections within the UCC. So almost all of the churches that I've worked with were UCC, and it felt good to be serving the UCC throughout all those years. And so when I was discerning this last, move of a church, it made sense to me to move into the UCC, and I got to say it's been confirmed over and over again that it was a really good decision. And then the call specifically to Longmeadow, my wife and I really felt like we had become New Englanders. The first church I served was in Connecticut. The second church I served was on the eastern side of Massachusetts. And so as I was looking down the list of churches that were open, Longmeadow stood out as a church that would be a good fit. And as it turns out, it's an hour and a half exactly to both of my other churches that I've served. So it's almost right in the middle, but also an appropriate distance away from, former parishioners and so forth. So that's been a good fit. But also just the character of the church, the way they embrace worship and ministry just seemed to be a nice fit with my gifts and what I could bring to the church. It's a church that's been open and affirming for 12 years. And that's something that's celebrated in our community and truly owned. So moving in the direction I was moving in was largely a desire not to fight about this anymore.
Yeah.
And to just truly embrace the open and affirming identity. And First Church of Christ in Longmeadow clearly has done that. When I candidated here, the Sunday I preached my candidating sermon and had coffee hour afterwards, 3 or 4 gay or lesbian couples came up to me and said, "This is the first church I ever felt welcomed in." Yeah, and when I heard that, I just said, yes, this is this is what I want, and this confirmed my sense of call to this congregation in particular, and also the fact that they were still prioritizing children's and youth ministries and trying to expand the ministries of the church and to be a church for the future. We actually embraced a motto, and it was from a UCC program that was presented on discovering your church's why, and somebody shared this statement from the UCC that striving to be a church the world needs today. And we've kind of grabbed hold of that as our church motto. It sits underneath our opening, or the name of our church on our bulletins, on our brochures, on our website. So striving to be a church the world needs today has kind of become a centerpiece of what we're aiming to do and how we're trying to do it.
So, Doug, I'm curious, if you were to say that there is a pastor who doesn't necessarily have to be in a covenant tradition, but they're in a different tradition, and they're kind of having that same angst that you were feeling, like how I want to be serving as a pastor. I'm in a context that isn't sort of fully allowing all of those gifts to be present, and they are looking to the UCC. What advice would you give based on your own kind of journey to this? Because it didn't happen immediately. One might say it took you, 20 years to come on over to the other. But I'm curious just if you would offer a word to somebody who might be listening to this.
I think the thing about my previous denomination was that they were not allowing room for churches and clergy to be open and affirming. And in that case, if your theology and your heart have shifted to an open and affirming approach, the UCC is a great place to be. I find that the United Church of Christ, because it's congregational and polity, has managed the challenges of this better than any other denomination. I think because the UCC has demanded that churches do thoughtful process before making the decision to become open and affirming has been a real great resource for unifying the church around the theme. Obviously, not all of our churches are open and affirming, but those that are have made a serious decision and done it through thoughtful conversation. But I think, too, there's a time when you need to get to a place where you say, okay, this is who we are. You know what I mean? And it's not, you just trying to please everybody and accommodate. It doesn't mean people can't have other thoughts. What it means is that we've made a decision missionally to be open to all people. And I think that's an important thing for the congregation I currently serve. But I think for the UCC, too. So not all UCC churches are open and affirming. It's a decision the church has to make. I was happy to find a church that had deeply resonated with open and affirming and had embraced it. And so that was part of my own journey. But I think it's a great place for clergy who are looking for a space in which they can be open and affirming, and where they can find congregations that are, or they want to lead one into it, is a great place to do it. So
thank you for that. No, I just thought, I had you in the hot seat. It was a good reflection from you. So, the other question I often ask is, can you tell me something that's happening in the life of First Church Longmeadow that you're excited about? And I know you're still probably building and moving into this first year, but I'm curious if there's one thing that you would highlight.
I came in for me, I developed something initially when I got here called the 7 Pillars of Progressive Christianity. And I was kind of trying to identify what I was moving into. And I wrote down a lot of thoughts, and then I started pulling them together into these 7 pillars. And I identified humility, responsibility, justice, inclusion, honesty, spirituality, and diversity.
Say those one more time.
So humility, responsibility, justice, inclusion, honesty, spirituality, and diversity. And it was interesting because right when I got here, I presented this to my congregation here, and the response was kind of amazing. Like I went through each of the 7 pillars and described what I thought they were, and it was just sort of let them know where my heart was. But we did a class on a Sunday and then on a Wednesday, so it was going to be the same class, just 2 different times. And a whole bunch of people came the first Sunday. It was close to 50 people, and by the time I was done, it was like there was a lot of energy in the room, almost an applause, and I don't usually get applauded after teaching. So it was just kind of an interesting reaction. And I thought, oh, nobody's coming Wednesday. They all came on Sunday. But then it was a pretty good sized group that came on Wednesday also, and same kind of energy at the end. And I remember I turned to my youth director at the time and I said, what is this energy? And she said, it's like you're naming something we've been working really hard at for the last. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And then on the way out, somebody said, you should teach this to our kids. And I was just launching our confirmation program, and I had made the decision to write my own curriculum. And so I started looking at the lessons I wanted to teach, and I realized they kind of aligned with each one of the pillars. And so I pulled this kind of together in a way that it makes me really excited about what's taking place in confirmation right now. And I feel like that was it was just a positive thing at a time when we were trying to relaunch our confirmation program. And so that whole experience and the connective tissue between those things has been probably one of the most exciting pieces of my journey so far. Actually, the whole thing, I've enjoyed getting to know the church, being a part of the community, and watching the community grow in a lot of different directions. So.
Well, thank you for that. Friends, it looks like if you need somebody to come and do some workshops with your church council, Doug, go look for him at First Church Longmeadow. Doug, this Sunday, I'm going to be with your congregation. How can people join us if they would like to fellowship with us on Sunday?
You can certainly join us at First Church of Christ in person in Longmeadow. Or you can join us online. We have online worship through both Facebook and YouTube. And we'd certainly be glad to have you join us in either way.
So, friends, as you know, First Church Longmeadow is one of the many places that you can find hope and light in the Southern New England Conference of the United Church of Christ. Our whole move to find hope now is an invitation that people might find a place similar to what Doug has described, a place that is accepting of all of God's creation. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you might find a place in Southern New England for you. Doug, thank you so much. Folks, if you look at the description of First Church Longmeadow right above this video or below, depending on the platform that you're watching it on, you'll also see an immediate link to the church so that you might get more information and who knows, maybe find your place of hope and light at First Church Longmeadow. Thank you so much for your time, Doug, and I can't wait to be with you on Sunday.
Thank you. We're looking forward to having you.
Thanks.